Trump welcomes Netanyahu to Mar-a-Lago, mending his relationship with a key political ally. A beaming Donald Trump welcomed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to their first face-to-face meeting in nearly 4 years on Friday, patching up a political alliance important to both men that had broken down when the Israeli leader offended Trump by being one of the first to congratulate Joe Biden on his 2020 presidential victory. Asked by journalists if his U.S. trip was making progress toward a Gaza ceasefire at home, Netanyahu said, "I hope so," and added that Israel was eager for an agreement. Netanyahu handed Trump a framed photo that the Israeli leader said showed a child who has been held hostage by Hamas-led fighters since the first hours of the war. "We'll get it taken care of," Trump assured him. Trump's campaign said he pledged in the meeting to make every effort to bring peace to the Middle East and combat anti-Semitism on college campuses if American voters elect him to the presidency in November. Trump was waiting for Netanyahu on the stone steps outside his Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, Florida, where he warmly clasped the hands of the Israeli leader. Both men have a strong interest in resuming their relationship, including for the political support and luster their alliance brings. "We've always had a great relationship," Trump insisted before journalists. Asked as the two sat down in a muraled room for talks if Netanyahu's trip to Mar-a-Lago was repairing their bond, Trump responded, "It was never bad." As president, Donald Trump went well beyond his predecessors in fulfilling Netanyahu's top wishes from the United States. Yet by the time Trump left the White House, relations had soured, with Trump publicly criticizing Netanyahu as disloyal despite the other man's efforts to mend ties. For both men, Friday's meeting was aimed at highlighting for their home audiences in the United States and Israel their depiction of themselves as strong leaders who have gotten big things done on the world stage, and can again. Netanyahu's Florida trip followed a fiery address to a joint meeting of Congress on Wednesday that defended his far-right government's conduct of the war and condemned American protesters galvanized by the killing of more than 39,000 Palestinians in the conflict. On Thursday, Netanyahu had met in Washington with Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Both pressed the Israeli leader to work quickly to wrap up a deal to bring a ceasefire and release hostages. Netanyahu is increasingly accused at home of prolonging the war to stave off the collapse of his government when the conflict ends. For Trump, now the Republican presidential nominee, the meeting was a chance to be cast as an ally and statesman, as well as to sharpen efforts by Republicans to portray themselves as the party most loyal to Israel. Divisions among Americans over U.S. support for Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza have opened cracks in years of strong bipartisan backing for Israel, the biggest recipient of U.S. aid. Hamas has been designated as a terrorist organization by the United States, Canada, and the European Union. For Netanyahu, repairing relations with Trump is imperative given the prospect that Trump may once again become president of the United States, which is Israel's vital arms supplier and protector. One political gamble for Netanyahu is whether he could get more of the terms he wants in any deal on a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release, and in his much hoped-for closing of a normalization deal with Saudi Arabia, if he waits out the Biden administration in hopes that Trump wins. Benjamin Netanyahu has spent much of his career in the last 2 decades in tethering himself to the Republican Party, said Aaron David Miller, a former U.S. diplomat for Arab-Israeli negotiations, now a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. For the next 6 months, that means mending ties with an irascible, angry president, Miller said, meaning Trump. Trump broke off with Netanyahu in early 2021. That was after the Israeli Prime Minister became one of the first world leaders to congratulate Biden for his presidential election victory, disregarding Trump's false claim he had won. "Bibi could have stayed quiet," Trump said in an interview with an Israel newspaper back then. "He made a terrible mistake.